Good afternoon, Anchor listeners. We are so glad to be back with you. And as always, I'm so enamored to be, to be, just to be. You know, it was once said to be or not to be, and we are being. We are creative beings, and we are special to the universe, and we are special to the creative powers that exist around us every single moment. And we need to take in and to breathe deeply and appreciate every moment that we have. I am so grateful to be a part of this cosmos and this universe as we envelop ourselves every single day to know and to understand what it is to be a live being and to know what it means. And so we welcome you today. We welcome you here again. It is currently 12:14 in the afternoon, and it is 65 degrees, a nice, cool, sunny day. And we are here again to share with you something that we think is very, very important, as always. And just before we get started, we just want to mention some things that we talked about before. And then we'll move forward. You know, now when we're doing research, I want to say this for a lot of the podcasters and researchers. I have high regards for a lot of scholars that have gone before us, Quasi and Fumi, you know, Ivan Van Sertima. You can name a whole list of them. Ben Yakiman and Dr. Jeffries, Sheikh Anta Diop, who's probably at the top of the heap when it comes to scholars. Him and Obinga. The list goes on and on. You talk about gentleman who just passed away recently. I'm trying to remember his name. Dr. Smalls. Not he didn't pass away, but Dr. Smalls. Just a lot of people. Dr. Clark. There's so many people. There are just so many people to give homage to. And currently, when we're talking about people like Tony Browder, we're talking about, and if I miss some names, forgive me, because the list goes on and on. We're just talking about a plethora of scholars who have done the research and who have delved into the history of our people and the culture and have contributed so much to our learning. And so the point that I'm actually trying to make is sometimes I think there's consternation amongst scholars because now you have so many people who are coming in and who are disseminating and elucidating knowledge about different things. And oftentimes what happens is some of these people are railed on because they're saying that they're kind of shooting from the hip and they don't really know what they're talking about. They haven't really done the research. So what is research? Research is the vocation of seeking out information, studying information, comparing information, and when that information is gathered, and deciphering the different scholars and the knowledge and going through, literature and books and so forth. What I want to say is that every scholar is basically regurgitating what they've researched. If you research Clark, if you research Obinga, if you research, you know, Sheikh Anadope, you know, if you research him, if you researched um, Dr. Jeffries, if you researched, you know, Ivan Van Sertima, if you researched, um, I'm trying to think of this brother's name. Um, and he's world renowned, and he's practically been everywhere on the globe in terms of his research, and he's done outstanding work. He's done outstanding work. And his name escapes me for a moment, but it'll come to me. But we're basically regurgitating what we've researched and what we've studied from other people, other than what the Creator gives you. Now, my contention is this, and it's really not a contention actually, and that is that when the Creator gives you something and you get it hot off the press, if you get it right from the source, then what better way can you get it? See, because that's not coming from a book. That's coming that's coming direct from the source. And we're going to be talking about some things today that is inclusive in that particular model, and how that becoming a whole entity where you actually pull in from the universe, you actually pull in from the Creator by becoming a spiritual being, by being a spiritual entity. And why do I say that? I say that too because you have a lot of people who are scholarly in terms of knowledge, but when it comes to wholeness, are you actually that whole entity that you can pull in all the spiritual resources that you need to pull in to give out? Okay, and what do I mean by that? See, because one can receive knowledge, one could receive information, but how does your life reflect that? And this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm actually talking about. How does your life reflect that? And when I share some of these things with you, you'll have a better understanding of what I'm talking about. Because it's basically likened to, people who are running around and they're saying I'm this and they're saying I'm that and they're saying I'm this and I'm saying I'm that. But their life doesn't reflect it. Okay? And I'm not, obviously, I think you know that I'm not talking about everyone. So, my belief, and it's not just my belief, it's a knowing. It's a knowing. It's all about a knowing thyself. And to become a whole entity of inspiration and meting out the spiritual, because this is what we're talking about. The spiritual attributes that we're actually talking about that comes from our ancestors. That actually comes from my ancestors. It has everything to do with what you've actually sacrificed. So today we're going to be talking about, and some of these words that you'll hear me say, we mentioned them before. So it kind of says that, and it is that we're on the right track. And this particular research, or this spaces that we're in regards to, this research and studying, and where it's coming from, we all are studying someone, or we're studying information that we give out. So we're talking about developing, simultaneously being in these bodies in these three places, simultaneously. It talks about the knowledge awareness in the body you have includes corporeality, intellectual and social aspects which are not separate but intertwined. And let me mention, I want to give a shout out to my daughter. It was her birthday on yesterday. And I already did it, of course, on yesterday, but I want to give a shout out again. My daughter, my oldest daughter, she turned 39. And so I'm glad about that. I'm happy about that. And so some of these things, of course, like I said, we're going to be reading to you, and we're going to share this to you. And I also want to mention that officially I've gone meatless in my diet. And I've been doing this, actually, I've been weaning myself away for some time. And because I want to be able to be that whole entity that we're talking about. And so, and I believe that without doing that, you're not a whole spiritual, you know what I'm saying? You're not a whole spiritual body. You're not that wholeness. And so we're going to be talking about some of that. And it goes on to talk about and say that knowledge, that awareness is in the body you have includes, like I said, the corporeality, intellectual, and social aspects, which are not separate but intertwined. And it talks about the general noun for this is ninefold soul, or what should be life. And there's that word nine again. We talked about that before, the nine ether. So you will always see that nine. You would always see that nine. And let me mention too, if we don't, and more than likely we won't, we'll do another segment. We'll come back because there's a lot of information, as I said, to cover. And as a matter of fact, I know that I mentioned to you guys before that there's information that I need to follow up on, some other things that we've done before to conclude. Okay, to conclude. So we'll do that as well. Trust me. I haven't forgotten, because I know that there are things that I didn't complete in terms of, because there's so much information that we're going to be coming back to. But let's move on. A vital part is the ka. Now, we talked about the animal ka, the lower ka. We talked about that in the last podcast, I believe. We talked about the lower ka when I was mentioning about how, when you're in that lower ka state, in that animal ka state, you don't allow the animal ka to rise up to the higher ka, where it merges. Okay, and so again, this a lot of times is because what I had just mentioned a moment ago, becoming that whole spiritual entity. So when you're dealing in the lower ka, it's because there's not a wholeness in the upper ka. Okay? And ka, what am I talking about? We're talking about spirit. Okay? And I know in Christianity people might say, they say things differently. But when you raise up your ka, and what does that have to do with? Okay? What does that have to do with? So ka spirit, it refers to the vital force which is powered by, listen to this, which is powered by food. Food. What you intake. What you intake every day raises your ka, because we are electric beings. And so being an electric entity means that you have to take in electric food source. You can't eat anything. So this is where it is so important, because I've been saying for the longest time that you cannot be, and you won't be, a spiritual whole entity with a higher ka if in fact you are poisoning your temple, or you're poisoning your inner soul, your inner ka. You cannot be a higher entity, which is powered, as I mentioned, by food. Interestingly enough, one term for food also is ka. Is ka, which alludes to the correlation between vitality and eating. Being in three places simultaneously starts with deep breathing, regular outdoor walking. And this is what I mentioned to you before, and I had said, you need to get vitamin D. Of course, vitamin D comes from the sun, as we all know, right? Walking is something that I do often. This is why I say, and I have said, I go outside, and that might sound real strange to some people, go out and I hug a tree. Why? Because a tree is life. A tree is alive. It's alive. And you have no idea the transferring of power and energy when you do that. It's alive. And you're alive. And so if you're eating live electric foods, then you're raising your ka to become that whole entity. You're raising your animal ka to your higher ka. And unfortunately, some of us are still living in our animal ka. Still living in our animal ka. And it's unfortunate. But there's a way up. And knowing the human body. So we're going to talk about the human body for a moment. It says our nose is life. Your nose is life. Why? Because you breathe through your nose and your mouth. Your mouth, creativity. Fingers are for skillfulness. It talks about you're creating, you're doing things. Hands, control. Watch how you use your hands. Don't steal. Don't take things that don't belong to you. Arms are interaction. Heart, mind, and conscious. Belly for instinct. It says testicles, aggressive and force. Because we know that we're bringing forth life when we interact with our spouse. You know, not with your girlfriend, not with somebody you just meet off the street, not with somebody you just randomly having intercourse with. See, this is where it comes in to how spiritual really are you? Are you talking the talk and not walking the walk? Are you randomly having intercourse with different women? I mean, how many brothers, how many sisters who are talking this talk are doing the due diligence? How many women are you sleeping with? And you know what I mean? You talking about higher consciousness and higher this and higher that. But if you exchanging body fluids with other people who don't belong to you, nah, bruh. Nah, sis, that's not, that's not what's up. Body, head orientation, eyes knowledge, ears participation, back position and statement, legs action, and feet for dominance. It says the human body is not only a container which delimits the physical, mental, and emotional individuality towards the outside in ancient Kemet. The body was a structure which intertwined, linked, and harmonized different aspects of human nature inside, in which serves as a tool to come into contact with the outside world. And you can look in your Bible in Luke 17:21, talks about the kingdom within you. So this is talking about raising your kundalini, becoming that spiritual entity, becoming that whole spiritual apparatus where you emulating your forefathers and your ancestors' work will be done successfully with their wisdom. Look, their words endure in writings. Open for you and can ready, and you can emulate the wise man. It says a skilled man becomes an educated man. And this is spoken of by Makari. And this is one of the ancients. Okay, so again, raising your car, doing all the things that bring you to this higher realm of existence, this higher realm of essence, this higher realm of being, which is energy. You are an electric, magnetic entity. And you have to intake those things that raise you spiritually. And a lot of us, we want to be, and let me say this, because I hear people say different things. I don't only listen with my ears, I listen with my spirit. And when I hear people say they aspire to, I don't aspire to anything. Why? Because if you aspire to something, you're trying to be something rather than just being. Being is eternal. Being is infinite. I don't have to aspire to anything. I'm being. You feel me? I'm being. I am that I am. Being is in itself doing. Because within you There's already a mechanism spiritually that is already set up within the universe, within your universe, where the gears and shifts have already internally, infinitely been in motion for eternity. And then we're talking about the formulation of a body where the spirit and the soul inhabits. The spirit and the soul inhabits to make that being workable. So, I don't have to aspire to be what I'm already being. Therefore, you are electric to be clearly aware you must. And here we talk about, when we talked about in one of the other podcasts, how the oxygen, 65% critical to conversion of food into energy. So we're talking about food that's electric, that gives life, that is life, to keep life. And we talked about carbon before. It talks about the so-called backbone of the building blocks, 18.5% of carbon of the body, and it's a key part of other important compounds such as the testosterone and the estrogen. And then when we come back, when we do another segment, we're going to go into the hydrogen, and we're talk about all these other table of elements that comprise the ether and the esoteric meaning of our spiritual existence, our spiritual essence. We'll talk about those things. So to comprise this spiritual body, this spiritual entity, one has to encompass everything that comprises the makeup of that spiritual body, that spiritual entity, such as we mentioned, the Ka, and taking in that electric life, taking in those electric properties that give life to the spirit. We're talking about to the spirit, to the Ka, to the soul, that gives life, that you are able to manifest and be in these places simultaneously. And the only way for that to be achieved is that whole entity has to be comprised and taking in those electric properties that give life to life. You have to give life to life. You can't give dead things to life. It's not going to work. You can't give dead things to life. You have to give life to life. So if which you are a live entity, you are a live being. So you have to give life to that being for it to continue to exist. You have to give life to that being for it continue to exist. That's the only way it is going to manifest. And as I said, we will pick up and we will continue to bring you more life. And as I said, raising your kundalini. And let me say this too. I want to mention this. Yesterday, I I was juicing. I'm saying it. I never want you to do this. I had juiced some, and I was feeling otherworldly. I really was. I mean, and it was actually a little bit too much for me. I had juiced some juice, and I had juiced some other juice like a day or two before, which was still good because, of course, it was refrigerated. And normally, what you want to do when you juice, because the juice is alive, when you juice, you want to consume that juice within maybe 24 to 48 hours if you have it in the fridge. But if you're taking juice with you and you're out you're out in the elements and you're going somewhere, you want to juice that juice within the first maybe hour. You don't want that juice to sit in your container and you're carrying it around and you're drinking it. It's not it's not it's not Snapple, it's not Coca-Cola, it's not, which I don't drink. It's not those other juices. You talking about real juice. We talking about, mango, celery, cucumber, beets, and whatever. So anyways, the point I'm making is this. I had put some beets in my juice, which I normally do. But what I did was, and I had some other stuff in there like mango, what else I had? I had some plums. I had some, I had a host of things in it. But my daughter often tells me, Dad, you use too much. Anyways, what I did was I used some fresh sage leaves. Let me tell you something. Don't ever use fresh sage with beets. It's too strong. Those two things right there, they're too strong. And I used those and perhaps probably what I did is probably I drunk with that combination. It was too much. And so I was feeling otherworldly, and I was feeling like I was floating up out of here. And it made me feel real strange and and the combination was really too strong. I wanted to say that. Don't ever do that. Don't ever use fresh beets with fresh sage leaf. Don't ever do it. Too strong. You use one or the other. Don't. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, you never want to use too many beets because I buy fresh whole beets, boil them, peel them, put a little organic vinegar or whatever, set them in the fridge, maybe put a couple of mint leaves in there, and then I'll cut one up because sometimes I'm able to get really big ones and which is really good. And so they'll last a good amount of time for about a week or whatever, when I'm juicing. So I just wanted to mention that because things that are good for you can hurt you too if you don't use them the right way. You know what I mean? So we are being and we're reaching a higher destination. We're reaching our higher selves. And again, for this to actually happen, as mentioned, one has to take in the electric life to electric life. You can't put in dead stuff, as I mentioned, into an electric being, and then you can't be doing things that are against what you're doing. You can't do that. You can't do it. It's not going to work. And sometimes, you have those of us who want to have our cake and eat it too. So you can't be espousing certain things and not living the whole thing. You can't. So I just wanted to say that. And so we'll be coming back again. And so continue to stay with us, continue to support, continue to like, continue to share. And if you would be so kind to subscribe, we will be so grateful. Again, this is Seth Moore coming to you here on Anchor by Spotify. You can find us, of course, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Apple Music, Buzzsprout, Podbean, Patreon, and many, many more sites where you can hear us give you this important information. Keep your vibrations high as always, and have a great afternoon. And we will be seeing you the next time. We bid you a great afternoon, and stay high. Take care until the next time.